At Council Bluffs Savings Bank, our goal is to help you, your families, and your businesses grow and prosper for generations. We take pride in our community, whether it's volunteering our time or helping individuals, families, and businesses succeed. We provide you with the personal service and attention you deserve. With over 220 years of banking experience, decisions are made locally. We are Council Bluffs people operating at Council Bluffs Bank to help Council Bluffs be a better place to work and live. Council Bluffs Savings Bank. Hometown banking, the way it used to be. Member FDIC.
Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And would entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Well, I just want to congratulate. I know a lot of times we have various commissions and boards and committees, and not very often people show up, but Troy is getting appointed tonight to the Council of Civil Rights Commission, so I just want to say congratulations. It's very exciting. And just exciting that you guys are here, and I know you're very excited about this opportunity. So for everybody in the audience and anybody that might be watching at home, if you have any interest to serve on any of our commissions, our boards, our committees, please don't hesitate to let any one of our council members know. Let Mayor Walsh know. We're always looking for people to serve, and so it's even better if we know someone that really is interested. We would love to put you on a board or a committee. So don't be shy about coming forward. And Troy, we're excited for you.
And just a side note that we try to fill those commissions from people who live within the city limits, if at all possible. So.
All right. Thank you again. Look forward to your future years of service. Once you get on, you can't get off. So.
Surprise.
All right. Any other discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, what is the pleasure of the council?
I think we have a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we have the public hearings. This is time and place for a public hearing is advertised in the matter of Resolution 14-155, which is approving the urban revitalization plan of the Bluffs Northway urban revitalization area. Is there a proof of publication on file?
It is on file.
Have any written protests been received?
None received.
Are there any oral protests of this matter? Is there anyone here tonight who would like to speak against? Seeing none, is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor? If you'd approach the podium and give your name and address for the record.
Deborah Smith, 12910 Colby Street, Omaha, Nebraska. And I work for Gordon Properties, and we're the ones that have submitted the petition. Do we have any? I know we talked about this earlier. Do you have any more questions for us?
Anyone else have any
Okay.
questions?
Okay.
All right, thank you so much. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor? Then we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Did we
No,
have a
we
motion?
had no motion.
We didn't have a motion.
Well, I can't win for losing.
You're testing us, aren't you,
I was
Mr.
just
Mayor?
gonna go with it.
I kind of caught Nate out of the corner of my eye going, excuse me, last time we had a motion and I acted like we did, and now we don't have a motion, I act like we did, so we're even. Is there a motion? And is there a second?
Second.
Discussion by the council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
This is the time and place for a public hearing is advertised on the matter of Resolution 14-156, authorizing the disposal of excess city property vacated by ordinance number 3188 that was dated September 14th, 1948. Is there proof of publication on file?
It is on file.
Have any written protests been received?
None received.
Is there anyone from 1948 who would like to speak against? Anyone in the audience who would like to speak against this? Any oral protests? Is there anyone from the audience who would like to speak in favor? Seeing none, what's the council's pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. This time and place for public hearing is advertised on the matter of Resolution 14-157, which is also authorizing disposal of city property formerly known as 908 Fifth Avenue. Is there proof of publication on file?
It is on file.
Have any written protests been received?
None received.
Are there any oral protests tonight? Anyone wishing to speak against? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor? Seeing none, what is the council?
We have one.
I'm sorry. Could you give your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Heidi Trinnell. My address is 910 Fifth Avenue. I am the one requesting the purchase of this property. I know I have offered a lower amount than what the property is worth, but any of you who have driven through or walked through even that neighborhood knows that it's not the best of neighborhoods. My husband and I intend on, yes, making it part of our own property, but also building a large garden in the property to help out with the low-income communities in the neighborhood. So I know the property has been vacant for quite some time, and I know you're not getting any taxes, and you're also having to pay out to have the upkeep, which it's not really kept up very well because it's overrun with weeds again already. So I would just like you to keep that in mind.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, what's the council's pleasure?
Move the resolution.
Second.
For clarification, is it per staff recommendation or at the request of the applicant?
That was per staff recommendation.
And the second concurs?
Correct.
All right, any discussion?
I just want to briefly say, we as a city generally, when we receive property that we didn't intend to receive, we inherited, if you will, foreclosures or abandonments. It's generally our policy, if the property can be built on, the lot's big enough to be built on physically according to the zoning regulations, we generally charge fair market value, which is generally the best indicator we have is the assessed value. It may not be exact, but it is an objective figure, and almost always it's lower and sometimes significantly lower than the costs that we, the city, meaning the taxpayers, have into it for tearing down the building, the legal costs of doing all the paperwork and so forth. So it still is less than what the taxpayer is having to pay, but we can't go lower than that because we have a responsibility to try to recoup back a reasonable amount for the taxpayer. And I appreciate the concerns with the property in this instance, but I just wanted you to, since you did speak, I thought you deserved an explanation as to why we have there's a motion on the floor to go with the staff recommendation, which is to charge the value, which is more than your offer. And so I thought you deserved an explanation.
And I just want to also state that the planning department has told us, and they've told us this before, that by state law we have to sell the property for market value. So whether or not that assessed value is market value is probably debatable, but without an appraisal being done to show it less than that, that's the number we have to work with. So.
And I just want to add that the city has between $11,000 and $12,000 already spent on this property. So to me, not only does the assessed value of $7,700 seem reasonable, but it's just about half, well, less than half of what the city has in it. So as much money as we can recoup for the taxpayers, I would be in favor of that. So I'm not sure if the counteroffer of $7,700 is going to be accepted, but I hope so, because your garden sounds like a good idea.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. This is the time and place for public hearings advertised on the matter of Resolution 14-158, adopting an amendment to the current city budget, directing our finance director to submit the budget amendment to the county auditor and the Iowa Department of Management. Is proof of publication on file?
It is on file
Have any written protests been received?
and received.
Are there any oral protests of this matter? Anyone who would wish to speak against? Is there anyone here who would wish to speak in favor of? Seeing none, what's the council's pleasure?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion by the council?
Just like to say briefly that I was contacted by some people that actually read those public notices that appear in the newspaper, and they asked me, gee, it looks like we're spending a lot of additional money. I sat down and spent some time with finance director, Mr. Art Hill, and he correctly explains that this is a annual budget ritual that all cities go through at the end of their fiscal years, and that sometimes the realities don't always match up with those nice formal legal things that go into the newspaper. So he went to the trouble of providing a spreadsheet with plain English language explanations as to what we were doing and why. And it's kind of like, aha, now this makes sense. So I just wanted to say that from the standpoint that if anybody would like to see that, it gives some good insight as to the good work that Art and his department have put into this process going forward, and I'm in support of this.
And it is our responsibility to accurately reflect our revenues and expenditures, and as Council Member Ringenberg said, we're just cleaning it up at the end of the year because now we know what our expenditures and expenses were, or our expenses and revenues were. Anybody else? So we need a motion, I think. Do we?
Have a motion?
We have a motion.
God. Be glad to turn this over to the city
Strike
clerk.
3.
Anybody? I'm 3 out of 4 wrong. Anybody, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk, please step in.
Ordinances on first reading. Ordinance 6207, establishing the Bluffs Northway Urban Revitalization Area within the city of Council Bluffs.
We have a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Ordinance
First,
62.
Can I interrupt you? Just, some people say that they can't tell on the split votes how the votes came in, and so that was a 4-to-1 vote. In favor.
Ordinance 6208, amending the zoning map as adopted by reference in section 15.02.040 by rezoning the 3.6 acre parcel located at 2410 North Broadway Street, legally described as part of lots 2 and 3, auditor subdivision of the southwest quarter, northwest quarter, and lot 2 and part of lots 3, 4, and 11, except Creek, auditor subdivision of the southeast quarter, northwest quarter, all in section 19-75-43, from R1 single-family residential to R3 low-density multifamily residential district, as defined in chapter 15.10, and setting a public hearing for June 23rd, 2014 at 7 p.m.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Before there's discussion, there are some new people here, and so if you are new, just because in the public hearings we called for oral protests or oral approvals, that doesn't prohibit you from speaking. The only difference is that you're limited to 5 minutes rather than 10 minutes. So if these items are of interest to you, you're certainly welcome to step to the podium, give your name and address, and make a comment. So we have a first and second. Is there any discussion by the council?
Can I ask if that's per staff recommendation as opposed to the applicant? Just so the record's clear.
Right.
Okay.
And that includes the plan, residential overlay, all that.
Yeah, the
all that.
overlay, and I
Exactly.
believe the parcel split recommendation. Okay, I just wanted to make certain
I wish-
what we were voting on. The only other thing I'd mention briefly is I'd be curious to know, I'd love to hear from the residents. I hope they'll either write to us, email us, or they're welcome to show up certainly at the public hearing on June 23rd, particularly those folks on Sylvan or Zenith Drive, as it may affect some of the traffic pattern. And so I'd like to hear, but it's also a phenomenal opportunity for housing that's needed. So I'd like to hear kind of the pros and cons from folks, particularly those closely affected by it. So please let us all know.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I wish we had better options considering Indian Creek and provide more direct access to parking lots off of North Broadway. But I can't change geography, and I'd like to see this sort of project move forward. So I also look forward to to that public hearing and hear about this further.
All right, seeing no more discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Ordinance 6209, amending Chapter 2.10 Sales Tax Revenue by amending Sections 2.10.010 through 2.10.030.
Move the ordinance to second reading.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion by the council?
Yes, as we've discussed earlier, I have some real reservations, notwithstanding the critical nature of the levee work that has to be done. We had some discussion at the study session as to what the language clarification on that last paragraph and what the intent of it was, because it still remains what it is, and as that amended language currently reads, it appears to provide the council much wider authority than what we discussed here even this afternoon. And my concern is that given the plain language of Iowa Code Chapter 423B, I think that we are constrained very much in our authority, that we do not have the authority to do this without returning this back to the voters as we initially asked them for their opinion, and that we should not do anything that pushes or reinterprets what their intent was at the time of the ballot resolution. So I intend to vote against this.
I would like to say that I would agree that on second reading, my colleague, Councilmember Ringenberg, had an excellent point with regard to having subsection. There are two subsections that are changing in this chapter if this passes. And even though laws are really meant to be read as a whole, there's an idea of making it very clear that the restriction that the council, even though the language will say that we can do as much, spend the money on as much different subject areas as the voters permitted, the section says we can spend it as we deem appropriate and necessary. The previous section says, of course, we can't go beyond what the voters have authorized, the limits of the box. And so making that a bit clearer, I think, it doesn't hurt. I think it helps make it better. But on the substantive issue, when you get down to it, I see my colleague's point. I'm strongly disinclined to agree with it, but I see his point. And we have asked, just so folks know who didn't have the benefit of being at study session this afternoon, we are having the legal department look into that to determine whether the language in the ballot initiative, because you have to look to what the language says, not what we today think about it. That's what the law says. Look to the English that's written. I'm extremely comfortable that what's being proposed is within the language, but I think it's very sensible and to have legal department weigh in on this matter at this point. And so we look forward to hearing that response in due course.
And we do have 2 more readings of this as well for any further questions or.
Although I don't think a third reading has been scheduled, has it?
Not yet, but it wouldn't unless this body were to waive it.
Right.
Larry, can you give your name and address for the record, please?
Larry Kofod, 2627 Avenue J. I am a little bit concerned about this, basically because of the verbiage of it, and I'm just afraid that if we are taking money away from one area and putting it in another, not to say that the levies aren't an important issue. I live a mile away from the levee, and it was extremely important to me in 2011 that levee held. But it's also extremely important to me that our streets be taken care of. We've had an awful lot of rain, we've had an awful lot of flooding in the area, and there's streets and sewer systems that are going to be collapsing. It's just a matter of time. Our water table has risen so much, and there's nothing we can do about that water table unless we are to put in a large pump in the middle of the city and pump all that out to the river, hopefully to the south, and then the people south of us will surely enjoy that. They can fill up their swimming pools. But I'm against this because of the fact that if we start taking money away from one area, that the money was by voters' request to be used for improvements on the city, and we take it away from there and we put it into the levee systems, and then there again, I'm not saying the levees aren't important, but if we take it away from that and put it into that, and then pretty soon we say, oh golly, gee, we need all these streets and sewers repaired, where are we going to get the money from? Now we get another tax increase. There's people that are living on a fixed income, they just can't take a lot more. And city taxes, you know, I realize we've got to take care of things, but there's also a point to where a lot of people have had enough of taxation, and we've got to leave things in order to pay for other things. And so I'm just against this verbiage right now.
Thank you.
And I do appreciate your comments, and I'm of the same concerns that you are about the taxpayers, but what I want everybody to know is that it's not optional, so one way or the other, we have to repair Indian Creek, Mosquito Creek, and those that take the storm sewer, you know, that's the outflow for the storm sewer out to the river, and then we have to repair the levee. So whether we find that that is all an integral part of the sewer system as the ballot initiative read, or we don't, the taxpayers will, if we don't use this, then we'll have to do a bond issue to get the matching funds to pay for it. So either way, at least this way we've got, yeah, it is, it's really worrisome. So, this way we've got everybody that buys in Council Bluffs is helping towards it, but otherwise it'll be a property tax increase.
I understand what you're saying, but I also understand from the taxpayer's point of view, we have certain expenses, and just myself, I had an air conditioner that went kaput, and I had to call them in on overtime. Unexpected, but yet I still had to pay it, and that comes out of my budget then, and it shortens me up.
Yeah, and this is an amount of money that can't come out of the budget. I think the total will be over $40 million or more.
Yeah.
So it's not even an item you can budget for, but the whole point is that the ballot initiative read sewer system, and so the question that we're getting legal information about is whether or not Indian Creek, Mosquito Creek, and the levee are considered an integral part of that storm sewer system, so we'll get that.
And the other thing to mention is the overall cost of this, however we fund it, is total, not just counting the contribution from local taxes, but the money you pay in federal taxes and in state taxes, is $114 million. And if we don't do that, 39,500 people's homes are in danger of flooding. And indeed, actually, much of town, particularly towards the south and the west end, are, believe it or not, and I didn't know this before I was on the council, but many of the pump stations, because of the lay of the land, that actually sit, you know how we normally describe elevation in terms of sea level. If you consider the river level, consider that zero, there are significant parts of Council Bluffs that actually are below the level of the river. So even during times of drought, if there's any water in that river, we have pumps going 24/7, or many of the houses would be anywhere from 4 to 17 feet underwater in a drought. Because those areas, that's why the older part of Council Bluffs is built starting about a block and a half up the hill from here. Because unlike Omaha, a lot of times people ask why is our downtown 4 miles in? Because until the levees of the 1950s, you couldn't build there. It was underwater half the time. And you can't change nature. We've got to fix those, or all those folks, their homes and lives are in danger. And indeed, they will be rendered completely ineligible for flood insurance. So good luck getting a mortgage or keeping it, and there's no way anyone's going to buy your house. So you're going to be stuck in whichever house you have forever, unless you walk away from it, and the financial implications of that. So make no mistake, we've got to pay for it one way or the other. We can't, I mean, as a city, I don't like taxes any more than anyone else, but it seems to me that's an absolute necessity. People's lives being above water, literally, not just figuratively. And so, and I think, and I won't repeat what my colleague, Councilmember White said, but echo it, that we are getting a legal opinion now as to whether sewer systems includes the levees. I am very confident it does. I see the point that it may not, but we'll get a legal opinion on that. And again, if we don't do it through the local option sales tax, well, local option sales tax is paid by the folks in Neola, Underwood, Trainer, that all come to town and shop in our stores. So they help pay for that. If we do a bond issue or property tax, it'll just be the people who own property and indirectly the people who rent property in town, and it won't be shared quite so equitably. All those folks who come in, and we very much want them to take advantage of the fact that we have so many fantastic stores and restaurants to go to, so they should help pay for it too, it seems to me, that those areas stay above water. So it's a complicated issue, but we've got to do it, and I don't think there are no frills here.
And before I let you go, Mark, I'll go real quick, just to clarify one thing. You will be able to get flood insurance, but you will be required to get flood insurance. If those levees aren't recertified, the Bigger Waters Act now requires that flood insurance be sold at the true actuarial value of flood insurance, which means that people who have flood insurance today over the next few years on an 18% escalating annual rate will pay 5 to 7 times what they pay in flood insurance today. If you have to get flood insurance today, you're a new purchaser of flood insurance. You'll pay the full actuarial rate. And so in many cases with those homes down there, their monthly, if you live and still have a mortgage, your monthly flood insurance premium will exceed your mortgage payment. And so that's a big concern to this council too. Mark?
Absolutely. Mark Hansen, 110 High Clare. My question is this. First off, according to Councilwoman White, $40 million is the proposed amount.
Oh, no, it's a lot more than that. It's just that if...
No, coming from the sales tax that you want to shift from the sewer to the repair, is it $40 million or is it only a fraction of that?
No, it's only a fraction of that. We'd be able to use that as matching for the application that we just had approved from the state, and Matt can explain to you more about how that works, but it'd be matching funds, so it's over a long period of time that this would be
Ballpark
done.
figure?
And if I may...
2 to 4.
It's somewhere around 2 to 4 million.
If I may, the one thing is remember, when the voters approved the language, the one thing that no one disputes, because it's in black and white literally, is that the voters approved money to be, the local option sales tax to be used for, quote, sewer systems, unquote. So remember, that's an enabling law. So the council is not obligated to, so it's a box, if you will, a perimeter. The council, when it decides to use local option tax pursuant to that authority after the voters give it, they can use a part of it, they can use 80% of it. So over time, they've shifted where it goes within it, whether it goes to the full extent. That's not shifting away from the sewer system. I just want to make that very clear. It's a differing use underneath, always bounded by what the voters delineated as the outer boundaries. So it's not as if for the last 20 or 30, 25 years, we've decided to go willy-nilly all over the place, whatever the voters said be damned. It's nothing like that. I do want that to be very clear.
Mark,
I guess my concern was this. So if we're talking 2 to 4 million, obviously we were saying we're shifting $40 million from our roads and our sewers
that's
to
not-
go
no.
to the levy.
I did not mean to
that's
insinuate
just
that.
completely different than
If we
saying
have
we're
to-
shifting maybe 2, maybe 4 million is what the bond issue would have to be made to. if
No,
we needed a
actually,
bond.
because of the interest, they had run the numbers.
Mark, you'll see later on agenda item 6F, which is a resolution approving and adopting the Potawatomi Countywide Multi-Jurisdictional, oh, that's not right. It's D, I'm sorry. Resolution authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute an agreement with the Iowa Flood Mitigation Board to use sales tax revenues from the Iowa Flood Mitigation Program. What that is the state, on our 7% tax, 5% goes to the state, 1% goes to the city, 1% goes to the school district. Any incremental increase over the next 20 years of the base of sales tax we have today, we capture 70% of that. We went to Des Moines about a week ago and got approved for up to 57 million. In order to get that 57 million, we have to increase our sales tax over last year's base rate sales tax. We have to wait for those increases to happen, and what our intent is to use the first year or two of our local 1 cent sales tax to start that process of construction, and then we anticipate we'll get $1.8 million, and towards the end we get almost $5 million a year through that growth in sales tax revenue. As you can imagine, each year we're anticipating it will go up a little more. 57 million of the 114 million gets paid for, and the 114 million includes some of the flood fighting costs of 2011 federal money we use for that. So really what it is about 40 million locally that goes to the levees and the complete rebuild of the Indian Creek floodway, which was built in 1938 and is in need of rebuilding. So early on you heard it was a $50 million cost, and why is it 114? Some of it's the federal match, but in addition to doing the levees, since we had the opportunity to get this flood mitigation money, we also included in the Indian Creek concrete conduit that runs through the middle of our city that protects a big portion of our city that we really had no way of paying for, and we saw this opportunity to do both of them. So that's why we're in the 90 million range now. First 10 years would do the levees. The last 10 years would rebuild Indian Creek. 57 million from increases in the sales tax, not out of local pockets other than the 5 cent. You know, some will come from Omaha, so I guess it is out of local because it is our increase, but it was money that you spend anyhow that was going to the state, now gets to stay here. No increase to the local taxpayer because they would have spent it anyhow. The 1 cent sales tax, by front end loading with that, our calculations say save about 20 million in interest. So we're saving the taxpayers 20 million by doing this. We think that since the water rains, it runs down the street, it goes into the sewer and goes into Indian Creek. That's certainly, to me, part of the storm sewer system, which is how the language of the ballot read, streets and water systems. We think it's an appropriate use. We're waiting for the city attorney to verify that. So.
Well, you know, one other thing I just want to add is that when this ballot issue was passed, at that time, our sewers were combined. So you had your stormwater going into your sanitary system. So, yeah, and now they're separate. But I mean, that money was used to separate them. So they're still both they're both sewer systems. It's just one is for storm and one is for sanitary.
And at the time, they anticipated 3 million. 3 million should be spent. Well, we collect over 8 million now. So.
Yeah, I guess I was 9 years old apparently when this was passed, so I didn't actually have the option to vote on it.
Me too.
But I guess my main concern still comes back to this. We're devoting somewhere around $2 to $6 million, just ballpark figures, away from our roads. You know, driving through town, there's always something else. Even on page 1, we can recognize, you know, 25,000 to this payment, 32,000 to this payment, this sewer, this sewer, this sewer. There's plenty of work that always is going to be done, and if we take it away, how are we going to replenish it? And it will need to be replenished and break something.
The vast majority of road repairs are paid for by road use tax. We pay for a portion with the 1 cent sales tax and a portion with bonding, but you know, we'll just have to schedule programming in and around it. But again, it's 2 million one year and 2 million the next year, and frankly, that's one road project of a decent size, a few blocks, but
I guess I'm still a little bit concerned about the answer to Mark's question, because you raised agenda item 6D about the application.
he asked about the funding, so I
Right,
was trying to explain.
right, how much of this that we were really talking about, and the write-up for 6D says, it is proposed that the remaining $25.8 million of the local match be paid for with revenues from the local option sales tax.
It's over a long period of time.
That's over 20 years.
Yeah, over 20 years.
So when he gives that number, it's per year, per budgetary year.
Okay, so the total cumulative effect is much larger.
Well, and if the legal opinion comes back that it is not, we cannot use this, then we have to move on to option B, and that would be to, do a bond issue and have $20 million in interest. So, there's not, it's gonna be one pocket or another pocket, any way it goes. We just prefer to be able to, since it is sewer, to use it in that way, because it's gonna save the taxpayers so much money, and we've got a lot more people contributing to it. But if the legal opinion comes back and says we can't do that, then it has to be repaired regardless. So that'll mean more than likely an increase in the levy to cover the bond issue and the interest from that, as much as we would not want to have that happen.
Well, and that'll affect all sorts of vital city services. And with regard to the roads, I agree our roads are not in the best of shape, and that's not due to any lack of effort by Public Works employees. They were out there in the rain. I don't think anyone's faulting them. I want to be very clear. The road use fund where your money goes to Des Moines and then gets doled back out to the state is not very kind to cities such as ours. I mean, there have been European settlement in this area since 1713. This is one of the oldest. The two rivers basically are where people tended to settle. They didn't settle in the middle because you weren't near water, and that was awfully important in those days. Well, it still is, but now you can turn on the pipe, and then they didn't have them. But the point is the system, as far as I can tell, looking at it, is set up primarily Des Moines-centric. If you look at the ring of suburbs around Des Moines, particularly West Des Moines, which is very similar in size to us, they have about 8 blocks, the Valley Junction section of West Des Moines, that is as old as Council Bluffs is 3/4 of our streets. And the road use funding is made to replace roads at a rate of West Des Moines, not ours. So if you have a concern, as I think all of us up here do, that we're not getting our fair share of money, considering our areas have been paying taxes to the state for far longer than West Des Moines, before it even existed, by about 100 years, that's something that we have to talk, our hands are tied on that one. I agree, but unfortunately, you'd be barking up the wrong tree if you talk to us, because we don't have any control over that. Just be straight with you about that.
Yeah.
Well, and we're, I mean, you went way beyond your 5 minutes, and I don't know if you got your question answered, and I noticed that there's someone behind you waiting to speak, so I want to make sure that your question is answered before we move on.
I mean, my comment was
And we'll be
mainly-
here in 2 weeks for the same, sorry to interrupt, but we'll be here in 2 weeks for the same issue, because this is an ordinance and it goes through three readings.
My comments were just more specifically to the local option sales tax itself. Is it needed? Is it not needed? Because if we can just divert $2 to $4 million from this local option sales tax to something else, are we being overcharged as taxpayers right now because it's not needed if we can use it for something else? That's really the point I was trying to make.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Darlene Kofod, 20627 Avenue J. My questions is sort of changed, but if your legal department determines this is part of the sewer system, why is the resolution needed at all?
Because, if I may, because as I said, if the voters, if they delineated, here's how much, imagine it as a box. The voters said you can spend it on sewer systems.
Lenny and Jeff, can I get you to sit in the front row and then
We'll get you up. So that doesn't mean the council is obligated to go out and spend 100%. Maybe that's not that much is needed. The voters have authorized to a certain level, but we can spend varying under it. It's a ceiling. So over time, we've changed what we spend different things on within that box. And so when things change or they shift around within it, they're within the authority of the voters. And that's why we're getting the legal opinion here, to make certain that this current suggestion meets those rules. I'm quite confident it will, but it doesn't hurt to have that confirmed by a review of the Iowa case, the common law.
Okay, and if it does fall within those parameters.
Yes.
Why is this resolution needed at all?
Oh, because in the past, because as I say, the bogs, we've never included the levees, particularly Indian Creek. I believe most of us up here, not everyone to be fair, believe that it fits within that box of voter authority. But to change it around within it, we just can't do it willy-nilly. We have to operate by resolution, by law, so that you can see us do it. We can't do it in the back room. So
If that's the case, though, then I think the verbiage should be changed to be very specific, because I'm concerned about carte blanche, so to speak, without coming back to the voters.
well,
I think what the intent was, and I don't know if we're gonna do
I
it tonight or
understand.
next week. No, the ballot specifically says what it can be spent on, and as Councilmember Ringenberg pointed out this afternoon, that Part 2 of that law doesn't really include language that it has to be in conjunction with the language of the ballot. And so I thought we were going to see an amendment to include that, but we may see it next week, we may see it later in the night.
And if I may, the other thing is if it, bear in mind, if it isn't included within storm systems, we have about 3 choices. We can go back to the voters, and if you don't approve it, we can bond and double or treble your taxes, which we'd be obligated to do because we can't default as a city. It's unconstitutional under our state constitution, and that doesn't require going to the voters. You would force us to raise your property taxes, probably doubling most people's based on my estimates of it. I'm not a finance person, but it's a significant increase at the very least. And it wouldn't be shared by the folks from Underwood, Neola, all those folks coming here and having the benefit in Omaha. Particularly a lot of folks come to the Manawa Power Center from Sarpy County and some parts of Douglas. Because they come into parts that would be underwater, if they don't help share in it, the property tax owner here, if we have no other option, we have to vote, we have to pay for it somehow, or 40,000 people are underwater. And if faced with that choice, I'll have to double your taxes if that's what we have to do. And we're trying, if the law allows us, and I think most of us believe it does, a way that would allow us to pay it over time, to avoid $20 million in interest, and to share that cost with all those other folks who would otherwise be, with respect, freeloading on our system. Well, that's a much better choice, and I hope to God it's allowed.
I'm not against your choice.
Sure.
I just want to make sure that the verbiage stays very limited as to what you can do with that money without going back to the voters.
I think we're stuck with whatever the language says. I 100% agree with you, and we'll find out from our legal opinion what it does. Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any disagreement there that it
No.
needs to be within what the ballot
Absolutely.
verbiage was.
Lenny?
Lenny Scaletta, 2025 31st Avenue in Council Bluffs. All I'm concerned about is the credibility, and you guys said you're gonna take it, you're gonna have the attorneys looking at it. Because, you know, you just gotta keep the credibility, and that's my concern, because if you don't, and you go to get another tax, and the people are gonna say, well, what did you do with the other money? You see how this can get out of hand. I'm just asking for just to do what you're doing, just make it nice and clear, so everybody's happy about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
My name is Jeff Jorgensen, 201 Shaley Circle. We're talking about a flood zone, I understand, and what's there to stop the federal government from declaring a flood zone, whether those levees are repaired or not? Is there some kind of guarantee that once this work is done, that we'll be in the clear as far as declaring any
The only thing
part
I
of
can tell you for sure, Jeff, and that's, you know, with the government, it's pretty hard to
Exactly
do,
right.
but the only thing I can tell you for sure is that if that levee gets decertified, they will be in the flood zone.
But there's no way to get a guarantee that if those
That they
levees are
won't be.
repaired? Okay.
No, we're at the
there's-
mercy of the federal government in that respect, and I imagine what many of us, probably all of us, would think in this regard, and unfortunately, we can't make a
We
promise we can't
assume
keep.
by the long history of not being in the flood zone that they probably wouldn't be if the levees do get recertified, but
I would think the Congress people would want to get reelected, so I highly doubt they're going to render the vast majority of the country ineligible or require massive increases in flood insurance. That would defy common sense to me.
I hate to surprise you, but FEMA is in that exact process right now. They are adding cities as fast as they can.
I agree, and Congress, fortunately, bipartisan basis, I might add, have been
Was
doing
just
quite a
gonna
bit to
say,
block it,
and
and I hope it succeeds.
not only cities, I'm, as many of you know, was a banker by trade. I had a 1994 mortgage loan to somebody on State Orchard Road who never was in the flood zone until this year. And so they just picked them and put them in the flood zone. There are little pony creeks out there, so there's some potential. When I called the guy to tell him, he says, I get it. FEMA's short of money and they're trying to generate money.
Exactly right. Also, in this endeavor, you might be looking for a partner. Wouldn't it behoove the gambling industry to maybe help out on this process? Just throwing it out there, brainstorming. And also, we've got some scrap iron on a bridge that we might be able to sell as a down payment for the first year.
If we don't get the levee fixed, we may need to climb to the top of that.
And all kidding aside, there is the industrial levee down there, of which I believe Ameristar and Warren Distribution and perhaps a few other folks, who the vast majority of that is privately paid for. Those businesses are for-profit companies, of course, good for them. They do pay for that section. I mean, we pay for some of the integration into the city system, because if that fails, the folks in Fox Run are going to be underwater. So to a certain degree we pay, but they do pay a disproportionate share, and I agree with you, they should.
Any other discussion?
Yes, one final thing would be, piggybacking upon your comments, Mr. Watson, about we have a number of bad options to consider, and this is hard work, and that's the point of my concern, is that we provide a level of clarity to the taxpayers, that they understand exactly what it is that we're proposing to do with the taxes that they're paying for. And so that's the reason for my concern, and I think putting this to them will help them understand the gravity of the situation that this city faces as a whole, not just city government, but that the city faces as a whole. And we owe it to the taxpayers, I think, to have that level of understanding and that level of consent. And having said that, just note that we're in the process of a sewer rate study, so we will be able to revisit this issue yet again.
Well, in a small government, municipal government, our number one duty is to protect our citizens, which is to provide police and fire, and this certainly falls under that protection threshold. And I mentioned the Biggers Waters earlier. If you can imagine that by law, federal law, if you have a mortgage, you're required to have flood insurance. If your flood insurance exceeds your mortgage, your home has no value. And so literally 68% or whatever of the city that lies west of 8th Street value, they could effectively argue that they shouldn't be taxed because their home has no value. And so we really need to protect those people, protect their life investment in their own home. So
Right. That would be a bigger tragedy.
And blame if blame needs to be cast, blame it particularly on the Gulf Coast area where we as federal taxpayers have paid to rebuild some very elaborate vacation, and I put vacation in quotes because they're very much nicer than most of us have as our only homes on the coast that you and I rebuilt 3 or 4 times in a decade. And they painted with a very wide brush, Congress did, and suddenly decided everybody should pay market value. The sins of a few affect many of us, and like Councilman Ringberg said, there is FEMA is trying to come up with some, in my opinion, very massively overdone regulations, but Congress appears to, again, if nothing else for self-interest, appears ready to fix that. And I encourage you to write to them to do. Otherwise, the mayor said, you're going to be paying more in your flood insurance than your mortgage. I don't know how people can or be able to afford to keep their house.
Okay, and then I'm going to do one housekeeping deal that's maybe a little out of order. Did you want to make an amendment tonight? Do you want to wait till next time to tie those two chapters together?
Are we waiting for Dick to do a?
Let's wait till next time.
Okay, all right. And then the motion was to set for public hearing on July 23rd, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Nay.
Resolutions, Resolution 14-159, authorizing the mayor to execute an order accepting the acknowledgement settlement agreement from Elks Lodge voluntarily surrendering their tobacco license in the state of Iowa.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion on this item? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Resolution 14-160, expressing the endorsement of the Mid-City Trail Phase 2 project by the mayor and the city council of Council Bluffs, Iowa.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
During the study session this afternoon, I just asked for some clarification on what the total city share of this full project will be over multiple fiscal years. And it added up to, if I got my math here in public correct, $453 million.
$1,000.
$1,000, I'm sorry. That's a
We
big.
just were talking big numbers, so.
That would be a fantastic trail.
That would be a gold-plated trail.
Paved in gold.
A little less than.
We could
little less than
find
a million.
money for the levies then.
Thank you for correcting.
Hi, I'm Kelly Hochstetler. I'm at 105 Chevy Drive. I have concerns with increasing the trail when most of the trails are not upkept. They're in bad shape from I'm nervous, sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
From the apartments on Valley View all the way to around Iowa School for the Deaf, around Manawa, all the way to where it hits Google. Half of it needs resurfaced. There's divots, there's cracks. I have 3 flat tires so far. I mean, it needs to be fixed before we extend the trail system, I feel. I mean, I'm all for it, but we need to fix what we have.
Part of it too is to literally people have to ride their bike or walk it in the street under, overpasses. But you raise a really good point. And this would allow them to at least get off the road. So that's what today's money is about.
We'll look at it. This is matching money for new trail extension, and so that's kind of part of it. We can't use the match to repair existing, but you're right. You develop an infrastructure and you need to maintain it, and it's a point well made.
Yeah, thank you for the information, because I don't ride the trail up by Valley View, so I would not have known that.
I did call the city last week because there's some really big gaps right around the Iowa School for the Deaf. And they did come out and put patches on quite a few. So I was really impressed that that happened within a week.
A lot of times we depend on folks to be the eyes and ears because there's what is this city 40 and a half square miles, I believe, about 300 miles of road, and that's just vehicular road, so they can't always see it.
Well,
If there are other specific areas, I mean, we rely on citizen comment to let us know because we're not always out there. So if there's anything other that you can think of specifically, if you could let us know, that would be great.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, for someone to come by and, to make sure that, oh, does this look okay? From 25th Street over to the bridge, that's full of debris, sticks, leaves. I mean, I know we just had a storm, but it's an obstacle course. It's a mess. I chose to go ride in Bellevue over the weekend because 40 miles of nothing but just straight, perfect. I don't want to have to go anywhere else to ride my bike when we have trails here, but anyway, it's my 2 cents.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Resolution 14-161, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Bluffs Paving and Utility Company Incorporated for the North 27th Street Rehab Phase 1 project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion, please. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Resolution 14-162, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with the Iowa Flood Mitigation Board for the use of sales tax revenues from the Iowa Flood Mitigation Program for the levee and the Indian Creek Flood Mitigation Project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion on this item? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Resolution 14-163, the approving or denying the installation of a temporary well for the use of operating a portable concrete plant for work in connection with the improvements to I-29 for consolidated concrete.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just think it seems really like the thing to do. This is going to be a very temporary situation, couple of years. It's a temporary well that will be capped afterwards, and I think the variance is well funded or founded to do it, so.
Anybody else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Resolution 14-164, approving and adopting the Potawatomi County-wide multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
My congratulations to the county and for the folks who put this plan together. It's not always a happy thing to get to read these sorts of things, because it goes through different really bad scenarios and talks about what our options would be if some of those bad things were to happen. But it makes sense that we do some careful analysis of these things ahead of time. And having once been in this business myself, I took a look at this product and read it over and thought they did a pretty fair job. And I think that this is a product that continue to be built upon for the future, because, as the mayor pointed out, our ultimate responsibility is to make sure that you all are protected, and this is a good step in that direction.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Applications for permits and cancellations 7A and B.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Citizens that wish to be heard? I'm guessing that,
I came in 7 minutes late.
Yours was approved per staff recommendation.
The 145156.
What?
Means,
Yeah.
which means what?
Which means, let me get to. I don't have
Which
any
agenda item are you
bookmarks.
calling?
4B.
Yeah.
I don't have any bookmarks.
Number B,
Oh,
resolution
get there.
14156.
We passed that.
I'll try to,
We passed it.
per staff recommendation, yeah.
it was your impassioned speech that got us.
Yeah. No, I was ready.
Yeah.
Presentation.
Yeah.
You want to show us? You can show us since you have
Oh,
it
it
here.
don't matter. You
Well, we
already
can
saw
see it.
I blew it up so that.
No, that's fine.
Well, you went to all that work.
Let's see.
All I was, I
Show it to
did
us and
was,
show it to the camera, please.
well, you know, I took the city to court to get this far.
Yeah.
Mr. Wade probably knows, you know, they're the ones that pointed out in their defense for this resolution to happen at 3188. Before that, I didn't know because it wasn't really available. It wasn't like something you could just walk out and find. So the research was killing me. And when I found out, I wanted to go ahead and purchase it. And basically, I had put a timeline in some, you know, when they actually passed it, this, you know, statement section, the layout of this map. Just so in case there's anybody who misunderstood about it. But since you passed it, it looks good.
Great.
You want to show the camera? Just
Sure,
so
so.
home can see.
Went to a lot of work into this.
Yeah.
That is a very large
Well,
blow-up.
I was in the same setting with the judge, and I had it on a easel, and had it sitting up there so everyone could see it and understand it from that far back.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so
Awesome,
much.
thank you.
Well done. Jeff?
I'm new to the city council meeting, so I don't know if this is the time that I can comment, just make a general comment
Yes,
on
you
it.
bet.
Okay. Thursday evening, we had a Republican Central Committee meeting at the library. Starts at 7 o'clock. Before the meeting got started, there was a weather alert and the library was closed. And not only we heard it out of the building, but also all of the kids that were in that building heard it out into an oncoming storm. Why isn't that building a storm shelter? And kids will be allowed to stay in there until either their parents come and get them, or maybe some safety issue is involved. Those kids were herded out, and they were told to go home. Al, you were there, you saw that. Several of us here saw that. So what is the?
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, actually, Tuesday night, the same exact thing happened. I loaded kids in my car to take them home, and of course they were Larry hopping in the car with me. But,
Yeah.
but you know, it's a bad situation. To be honest with you. They dumped all the kids out on the street.
Right. Who knows if the parents had dropped the kids off, tell them we'll pick you up at 9 o'clock. They were outside in the elements. And is the library not a storm shelter? So that's.
We'll find out.
Okay, I
because that's a
appreciate that.
great question.
It is. We need to know.
But yeah, they
Yeah,
ran
maybe
out of there.
community
and
hall
came
could be
into
opened
City
up
Hall,
in
Jeff.
that circumstance.
That's a good idea.
I don't know that that's a storm shelter.
Community hall.
Yeah,
How many windows? I don't think that's.
Or in community hall.
Even if they go in the back, it's sort of
An
under.
interior room in the library would be good otherwise, all the glass everywhere else.
And that was the option given to us. They provided us access to the community hall. And
They did.
I was a little concerned about the glass as well.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
That room's solid
And,
glass.
Well, and this is a thunderstorm, so
Right.
maybe we just need to work on some internal guidance on,
Yeah.
address the specifics.
It's a good point.
Sounds reasonable.
Good.
Because there was residual problems, as one of the kids had a cologne bottle with him that he left his coat in my car. And still can't get the smell out of it. Lenny?
Yeah, I've got a concern. Lenny Scaletta, 2025 31st Avenue. Al, you were in on this the other day when a young lady I know lives next to the South Expressway, and she knew that I knew something. You know, I went down and looked at the when they were doing the they have that. They're doing all the road work there for the freeways and all that, the highways and everything. And she has right next to her house, between the house and the South Expressway, there's a gutter there, and it wasn't draining underneath the highway, and it wasn't going down because there was kind of an embankment here, that kind of like a dam. And she made a lot of phone calls, and then I called Al, and he says, would you go down there over to her house and see what it looks like and everything? And I kind of told him about it. And she made quite a few calls. The only thing that I'm concerned is, and I know, according to Al here, that there's the difference between the state and the local and all this fight, but is there any way that she can say, you know, I live in the city, where can I go for some really good help from the city? I wish I had more details for you, but, you know, it'd be something to think about, you know, a customer service on the city side to be able to accommodate people, not just you.
No, it's incredible the calls I get.
Okay, all right, so anyway, would it be, you know, I mean, I don't know what the answer is other than maybe something, is kind of a customer service type of person that they could go to that's going to be on the payroll anyway, that they could say, you know, I'm having problems. How do I go about this? How can I cut through this red tape?
Yeah.
It's just something to think about.
And I'm not exaggerating, I get some of the most absurd phone calls. And some of them are well-intentioned, but you're just going, wow. But, you know, all day long, so I guess I'm the repository for people's questions. And you hate to hire somebody and have them sit there for 4 days to answer 2 questions, so we'll work through it. But yeah, please, and people at home, I think, know that if you've got a question or concern, call the mayor's office. Probably the best place to start, so.
I'll tell her. Thank you.
And Matt, since the interstate program's going to be going on so long, could we get the information posted on the front page of the City Council or City Council Bluffs website with because there's a lot of good information. They have a website, you can go on and find out where the closings are gonna be, contacts in case you do have a problem like that. If we could at least put that information on the front page, that would be really
And
helpful.
HDR, who's the overarching engineer on the interstate rehab, has 3 dedicated public relations persons, so we can make that happen. For those at home who are watching who don't know, down by the marketplace is really gonna get dicey over the next 6 to 12 months. Metro Crossing, sorry, we always get those. We need one, they're both with M's, but they, exit ramps, entrance ramps will start being closed, and so it will be interesting, and so people will need to kind of keep up to what's going on, or they'll end up having to drive to Bellevue to come back to get.
Go a different way.
Well, and
And they
Well,
know they
I
have a
know
lot
I
of
get email updates. Is there a way that the citizens can go and subscribe to the email updates so they
Yes.
get the alerts?
Yeah, on that DOT website that we'll put
That's
the
where they can
link
sign up.
for, they have a thing on there where you can sign up to get those updates, so you'll know when the roads are closed, where they're
Yeah.
gonna be closed. It's really a great
That's very
site,
useful.
so
Yeah.
we just gotta get it out to everybody, and I think being on our website would really help.
Well,
Well,
I'm sorry, so the council knows, and that this lady's concern was that water was coming up through her basement floor, not the drainage system, but that cracks had developed in her floor and water was gushing through those cracks. So it sounds as though this lady's gonna lose the foundation to her house. And that was caused by a drainage issue, it sounds as though. And so thanks to a lot of people trying to intervene and get her information, she was able to get some sort of response back from Iowa DOT and get some light shed on that. But I guess if the rains keep up, that's something that people need to keep a close eye on, their grounds and whatnot, to make sure that that amount of water isn't collecting.
Can I
Sure.
say something?
Sure.
Yeah, I forgot to, Al's right about that, and what happened is that the ditch, there was a telephone pole and an anchor, and they left the area high there to accommodate the telephone pole and the anchor, and she made quite a few calls. Finally, they got a road grader in there, and if she hadn't been persistent, bless her heart she is, they pushed that out so that water could drain, and now it wasn't draining into her basement. But her and her husband both missed a couple days of work, and they had pumps going, shop backs going all night long trying to do this, and they were in a panic. And when finally she got a hold of me, because she knows I'm a pain in the rear to you guys, so. But anyway.
Thanks for being a pain.
And they,
Just a joke, but anyway, she got it taken care of, but I'd like to see it simplified, that's all.
Yeah, no, it was a tough time for many citizens, and, a lot of people sustained damage. The last report I saw was 8 tons of wet debris from people's basement, which really isn't all that much, but I know they really went through tough times. I think at our homeless area, we picked up 5,600 pounds in just that homeless camp, so that's 2.5 tons just there. So really, when you put that in perspective, it wasn't a huge amount, but I know it's not reflective of the work people had to do to dry out their basements or their businesses or whatever. So
And I've noticed there are a lot of folks when mowing, a lot of times they'll accidentally or sometimes intentionally, but almost always accidentally, grass will get into the street and it'll block the storm sewers. And there are a lot of things that just be a good neighbor and try to make certain that if there's a sewer in front of your house or near your house, make sure it's there's grass. Not everything has to be done by the government. I mean, if we all do that and the system works, barring 30 inches in an hour, it works. But we all have to do our part.
Well, this information that was handed out this afternoon is just amazing. In the month of June, the storms that we've had, 289 loads of tree debris equal to slightly over 62 tons. And Mayor mentioned 8 tons of basement debris in 36 loads. So it's just amazing amount. And kudos to the the workers who had to remove all that.
They were out there in the rain fixing the streets and correcting the electrical in the rain.
Anybody else?
Jim Nelson, 102 Shaley Circle. I'm gonna take a step back. I missed my chance to speak earlier. You are right. We have to do something with the levees. And Matt, I do like your idea. And I hate to say this, guys, but we have too many lawyers on the council. I'm a voter, and I can see how the levees and the creeks are part of the sewer system. And this is the best plan I've heard yet. Thank you.
How do you improve on that? I'm not saying it.
All right, anyone from the council have anything to say?
Well, just,
Oh, wait, no.
just kind of what Lynn touched on briefly. I mean, we've had some crazy storms last couple weeks, and I just want to say thank you to our public works department. They have, police, fire, and public works worked hourly, daily, like Nate said. You know, I know we lost power on our street. They were out in the rain, getting rid of trees. And to the contractors too. I know we've had several contractors out there getting down trees, and everything's really been picked up. And it's been great to see neighbors out helping neighbors, and just thanks to everyone in this community that's really stepped up to the plate during the storms. So.
Everybody has really stepped up. I just want to take an opportunity. I think everybody here knows this, that when you're a public official, you very rarely get a phone call or anybody to tell you something good, you know, and that's just the nature of it. You know, people usually contact you if they have a problem, but I got some good feedback the other day, and I really wanted to share it. After I had a gentleman tell me that after the Celebrate CB, the Sunday after that, he was walking at Bayless that next morning, and there was one park employee cleaning up the park by himself and doing a very good job of it. So I tracked him down, and his name is Steve Dunn, and I just want to tell him how appreciative I am of that, and that it's employees like that that make our city shine and make the Parks and Rec department shine. And I really appreciate your hard work.
Steve,
Steve.
job well done.
Funny.
I got, and then we do have a motion put on here. A little disconcerting message though from my new fire chief, who, after the storm, rallied other firemen to go out and check and make sure everyone was safe, and he left me a phone message that that they helped multiple stranded motorists, and he thinks they got most of them out. And I'm going, most of them? What about that? A little worried about the ones that maybe didn't get out, but fortunately everybody was safe, so. We had the appeal on the fire alarm, and I need a motion on that under other business.
Would it be appropriate to postpone, or is that not an appropriate, so the gentleman can actually contact his company, or should we deny it at this point, or does he have recourse?
His recourse would be back against his company.
Right.
And his recourse, if he's not happy with this decision, he takes it to district court.
I see. Yeah, I think you're right.
It's still a
I
false
think,
alarm. Mine was done after.
I think you're right. It wasn't anything, his company messed up. They need to make it right. It wasn't the government ruling. You're right.
So is that a motion?
Sure. Motion to deny the appeal.
Second.
Discussion on that matter. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
At Council Bluffs Savings Bank, we take pride in our community and volunteering our time to helping individuals, families, and businesses succeed. We are Council Bluffs people operating a Council Bluffs bank to help Council Bluffs be a better place to work and live. Hometown banking, the way it used to be.